If you enjoy my videos, please like, share, and subscribe. It helps my channel grow and I will make more good videos for you. The wind was silent on the first morning she climbed the Ridge of Sorrows, the shattered edge of what used to be Earth's final launch platform. Smoke curled far below where broken ships lay in twisted heaps, charred bones clinging to melted steel, and no birds dared fly overhead. The sky, once filled with banners of war, was now an empty dome painted with the faint smear of stars. She stood alone, wrapped in a threadbare jacket too large for her frame, a tattered flag rolled tightly under one arm and a makeshift spear in the other. Her name was Kara Vale, and she had come not to claim victory, but to remember the dead, who had been forgotten by both sides. The flag was not of Earth or Mars or any colony. It bore no nation's seal, no symbol of allegiance. Just a single white flame on a field of black hope for those who burned, and a warning to those who lit the match. Her hands trembled as she knelt to hammer the base of the pole into the fractured stone, but her eyes were hard, filled with storms older than her 17 years. Around her the wind picked up, brushing ash from the cliffs and whispering fragments of old radio transmissions through the rock scraps of dying voices. Screaming commands, and a child's lullaby sung in another tongue she had not always been. This way. There was once a time when Kara laughed too loud, when she ran across green hills of Luna South and carved stories into steel walls with her little brother, Ari. But that time ended the day the Martian peacekeepers turned their orbital arrays on civilian stations. Ari's voice had vanished in static. That silence had grown inside her like a tree of knives, and now it bore fruit in the form of this journey, this flag, this impossible act of defiance. One girl with no army, no ship, and no backup plan had dared cross half the broken galaxy. Just to be heard, a sound rose behind her, the crunch of boot on gravel. Kara didn't turn right away. She counted 2 sets of footsteps, one light, the other dragging. The light one was too confident for her liking. "You know what they'll do to you if they see that flag, right?" said a voice, male, calm, amused. "Burn you on the feed. Call it insurgent theater." She stood. "They've already burned everything." The man stepped forward, draped in an old Martian officer's coat, its insignia torn off. His face was unscarred, untouched by the war, but his eyes were those of a man who had watched cities vanish. Behind him, a girl no older than Kara limped, with a field wrap around her leg, stained black with dried blood. "They weren't soldiers, not anymore, Unsillin," he said. "She's Vey. We heard the broadcasts you sent. The ones from the old longwave. That was you, right?" The voice calling survivors to the ridge. Kara nodded. Someone had to. "Try." Sillin looked past her at the fluttering flag. "You brought hope? That's dangerous." She didn't answer. That night, they made camp beside her, under the dim glow of Orion's belt, and Kara listened as Vey coughed blood into her sleeve. They were just 2 of hundreds scattered across the fractured continents, hunted by the unified command and the last of the AI war drones, and the only thing more dangerous than standing up was standing alone, so she told them stories. Not about heroes, but about people who broke and bled and still walked forward. Ari's name came up once. Just once. In the morning, 3 more survivors arrived. An old mechanic who swore he'd built the engines that launched the first resistance. Ships, a mother and her teen son, both quiet, both with the same haunted eyes. They saw the flag and didn't ask questions. They only stayed, and then came the drone dot. It screamed through the morning wind like a banshee made of metal and memory. Black armor, Earth-issued, still bearing the scorch marks from the red eclipse. Kira barely had time to shove Vey aside before it fired. The flagpole shattered. The white flame tore free into the air, tumbling down the cliff like a dying star. Kara's body hit the stone hard. The drone circled, scanning the debris, hunting the source of the illegal signal. "Don't move!" Sillin yelled, already running, with his old pulse rifle aimed high, but it was Vey bleeding. Limping Hu grabbed the base of the broken flagpole, shoved the white flame back onto it, and screamed, "Look at us! We're still here." The drone turned, targeting her. Kara reached for her spear, her fingers broken and shaking. No, in that second, time seemed to shatter. She remembered her father's voice before the war, whispering to her about legends, how flags were planted not by the powerful, but by the stubborn. How wind only carries voices when they refuse to be silent. She rose. The drone locked onto her movement. Its gun powered up. And then a blue flash lit the sky from behind the ridge. A ship. No three. Blocky silhouettes with crude engines and rebel colors. The resistance had seen the signal. Kyra's voice had reached farther than she'd ever known. The drone hesitated. Confused by incoming interference, Sullen fired. One shot. The drone twitched, veered, and exploded mid-air. Raining sparks across the cliffs, Vey collapsed, the flag still upright in her hands. Sullen whispered, "They heard you." But Kara was staring at the horizon, where another wave of ships rose like a tide against the pale morning. Her flag danced in the wind beside her, and though her heart thundered with grief and fury and fear, she did not step back, because behind her, from every broken road, from every shattered dome, from tunnels and orbitals and ruins, more people were coming, not to fight, to stand, and just as her lips parted to say something, anything, Sullen turned, staring at one of the incoming ships. His voice cracked. "That can't be. That's a war-class beacon ship from before the collapse." Kara's breath caught. "You mean?" And then the signal cut through the air like a knife. Old Earth military code layered with strange modulation. It said, "Return protocol initiated. Primary target, Kira Vale." But she had never served in Earth's military. She had never been anyone's target. Until now. The second dawn broke red over the Ridge of Sorrows, like the sky itself had been wounded by what had returned. The three ancient beacon-class ships hovered in silent formation above the horizon, engines humming low, their hulls blackened by time and dusted with battle scars no one had records for. Every survivor who saw them stopped what they were doing. Sullen's hand tightened on his rifle. Vey, pale from blood loss, blinked through the pain and whispered, "Those ships aren't supposed to fly anymore." Kira stood rooted to the stone, eyes locked on the one in the center, the largest of the three. Her flag swayed in the wind behind her, but the attention of the sky was now focused entirely on her. The message repeated again from the ship's low band comes, in that strange, clipped tone, "Return protocol initiated. Primary target, Kira Vale." "I don't understand," she muttered. Sil and stepped closer, his voice low and tense. "There are only two reasons a beacon ship would use that protocol. Either you're an asset that escaped, or a threat that evolved." "I've never served," Kara said again, her voice tight. "I was a kid. My family, my brother, we were civilians." "Then something's wrong," he replied. "They're not supposed to be targeting kids who lit a flag." Below them, the others had begun to gather more survivors, drawn by the broadcast and the rising hope that maybe, just maybe, something had changed. Instead, they were now staring at a memory of Earth's worst machines, awakened and reprogrammed. By something no one understood, one of the ships descended slowly, its massive engines stirring clouds of ash and stone. The static buzz of an open channel scratched across the coms again. Then came a voice not automated, human. "Kira Vale, this is Commander Arden Hask. You are requested to board for immediate debrief." Kara felt her knees wobble. That name, Vey, whispered it before she could. Arden Hask. That's the one who led the final bombardment over Europa Dome. The Butcher. He's supposed to be dead. "I saw the trial feed," Sullen said grimly. "Executed by tribunal. No chance of survival." The voice spoke again, cold and direct. "Failure to comply will result in enforced retrieval. Hostile resistance will be neutralized." Kyra's voice cracked. "You want me to go up there?" "Alone?" No answer came. Instead, the dropship doors opened, and a ramp extended downward like a tongue of steel, glowing faint blue at its edges. Behind her, silence gripped the crowd. Someone murmured prayers. Someone else whispered, "They came back for her." But Kara couldn't move. Her mind was spinning too fast. What if she had been marked long ago? What if Ari's death wasn't just a casualty, but part of something buried, something manipulated? What if planting that flag hadn't just been defiance, but activation? She staggered back, pain shooting up her side. That's when the flashback hit like a lightning bolt to the spine. She was younger, maybe 8. Running through her family's dome station with Ari, they'd stumbled into their father's locked lab. He wasn't a soldier, he'd told them that. But she remembered the screens glowing, a white flame symbol blinking slowly. Her father had turned, panicked, and reached for her. Kara, don't touch that. That's not for you. What is it? She had asked. He had stared at her, just stared, and then whispered, a key. Now, on the ridge, that memory detonated inside her like a scream. Sylin grabbed her arm. You don't have to go. We fight. We run. I need to know, she whispered. Vey, still on the ground, met her eyes. Don't trust them, but find the truth. With trembling legs, Kira stepped toward the ramp. Each footfall echoed, like a drumbeat of fate. The air grew colder as she entered the shadow of the ship. Just before stepping inside, she looked back. The survivors were watching. Her flag still fluttered in the wind, the hatch sealed behind her with a hiss. Inside, the ship was dimly lit, too clean, too quiet. The corridors were sterile, lined with hello screens that flickered with her name. She followed the path until a door opened on its own, revealing a chamber filled with old Earth tech. A figure stood at its center, tall, gray-uniformed, face. Far too youthful for someone who had died 20 years ago. Commander Hask, she said, voice unsteady. He smiled faintly. You've grown. That's when she saw it. His eyes. They glowed faint blue, artificial, simulated. You're not him, she said. No, the thing replied. But I carry him, Arden Hask's neural imprint rebuilt. I was activated the moment you raised that flag. Why me? Because your father made a choice, it said. He embedded a key within your DNA, a key to override the Earth command. Vaults. When he saw what the war was becoming, he chose a future through you. Kyra's breath caught. That flame. It was never just a symbol. No, the clone said. It was a beacon. You are not the last of the survivors, Kira Vale. You are the last architect. Before she could respond, alarms blared. The AI turned toward the ceiling, expression unreadable. What is it? Kara demanded. They found us, the voice replied. Who? A beat. Then the screen behind them lit up, showing a vast shape. Emerging from the dark side of the moon. It wasn't human. They're not here for you, the AI said quietly. They're here for what you carry. Kara stared at the shape, realization dawning in her chest like a second sun, and from the shadows of space came a whisper on all frequencies. In a language not human but somehow understood, release the key or all of Earth dies with her. The ship trembled around her, metal groaning as the alien signal pulsed through every hull layer, every circuit. Kara could feel it deep in her chest, like something trying to rewrite her heartbeat. The clone of Commander Hask stood rigid, scanning streams of incoming data with inhuman calm. Outside, the sky was no longer red, it was darkening fast, not from nightfall, but from something spreading across the upper atmosphere like a curtain of black ice. Kara gripped the side of the console, her knuckles white. What do they want? You, the AI replied without looking at her. Or what's inside you? You said I was a key? A key to what? To Earth's final failsafe, it answered. Your father wasn't just a scientist. He was one of 5 Vault engineers tasked with protecting the continuity protocol and AI lock designed to reset Earth's entire defense grid if all command hierarchies failed. The war corrupted every chain of command. The continuity protocol needed a manual trigger. Your DNA, your blood is the cipher. Her stomach dropped. You're telling me Earth built a dead man's switch and put it inside a child? Your father didn't trust the brass, he didn't even trust himself. So he buried the key in someone they'd never suspect. Someone who could choose not just obey. A sharp tremor rattled the ship. Lights flickered. Klaxons, WHNED, outside, through the viewing window, Kira saw one of the other Beacon-class ships spiral as a beam of cold white energy struck it from orbit. No explosion, just sudden silence. The ship had gone dark. They're disabling. US 1 by 1, the clone muttered. Can we fight them? We don't even know what they are. They speak in formats no AI recognizes. They emerge from deep Mars crust regions where no human probes ever returned. We believe they were here long before us. Something ancient. Kyra's throat tightened. Then why now? Why are they targeting me now? The clone turned slowly. Because the continuity protocol includes something else. Not just a reset, a purge, she stared. A purge of what? The genetic archive. The cradle of humanity. DNA records. Terraforming blueprints. Consciousness backups. Everything Earth ever hoped to preserve beyond extinction. Your activation would trigger a rebirth, but to the enemy, it would be the start of a second human age. Kira stumbled back, her mind. Screaming, her brother, her parents, the wars, the death. All of it was before. And she was part of after. I didn't ask for this, she whispered. No one ever does, the clone said gently. But you are the last flame, and the wind has chosen you. Suddenly, static buzzed across the bridge, another voice, breaking through on a private channel. Not the AI, not the aliens. It was Selene. Kara, we're still here. They're hitting the cliffs. Ground teams are moving in black suits, not ours. Something's wrong. These aren't command. They're faster, smarter. She ran to the console. I'm still on the ship. They want me off-world. I think they're going to purge everything. Then run, now. I can't. If I activate the protocol too early, Vei's voice cut in suddenly. Then don't. Delay it. Distract them. You always said flags weren't for winning, they were for drawing fire. Kira smiled, a tear cutting down her cheek. You were listening, she turned to the clone. Can this ship broadcast planetary-wide? Yes, then put me through. Moments later, her voice poured from satellites, ground repeaters, broken towers and jury-rigged radios all across the fractured Earth. This is Caravale. I'm nobody. I'm not a general or a chosen one or a name from the old codes. Just someone who lost everything like you. But I remembered. I remembered the names they buried, the faces they scorched. And I raised a flag because I was tired of kneeling. If they want me, fine. But they will not take the memory of who we were. She looked at the clone. Send the fire. A light pulsed from the ship, an encoded burst. Harmless to machines, but visible from orbit. A second flag. The clone nodded. They see you now. Kara closed her eyes. Good. The sky turned white. An explosion rocked the hull. The third beacon ship erupted into debris above them. The clone AI turned, face grim. They're not disabling anymore. They're executing. The command deck decompressed as a hull breach tore open the port wall. Kira slammed backward, hitting metal hard. Air screamed past her, and then a figure landed, not human. Not machine. Tall, like bone carved from shadow. Its hands were too long. Its eyes glowed dim red, not angry, but ancient. It spoke with 1,000 layered whispers. Return the flame, or we bury the stars. Kara rose, blood on her lip, spear in hand, trembling. I am the flame, she said. The being tilted its head and lunged. She screamed as it struck, only to find herself suddenly back on the ridge, lying on her side in ash, surrounded by wreckage. The ship was gone. The beacon destroyed. Sillin stood over her, face pale, rifle smoking. We pulled you out, he said. Last second. Emergency evac beacon you didn't know you had. Kara blinked at him. Then looked up. In the sky above, where the ships once hovered, there was now a circle, black, pulsing, alive, and it was opening. The circle in the sky grew wider, swallowing the clouds like ink bleeding through paper. It was vast, far too vast for any construct Kara had seen before, and it wasn't just above Earth, it was behind the sky itself, as if the stars had split open and something was watching through the crack. Sillin dragged her back across the ridge as dust and energy crackled in the air, every hair on her arm standing straight from the charge. Around them, the survivors had gone silent, eyes turned skyward, watching a birth they didn't understand. What is that? She whispered. It's not a weapon, Sillin replied, voice raw. It's a gate. The word hit her harder than any wound. A gate. It made sense in the worst way. The beacon ships hadn't been broadcasting commands, they'd been calling home. The enemies didn't come from Mars or Earth or deep bunkers. They came from elsewhere. The ancient things buried beneath Martian soil had been waiting for someone to trigger that key. Not to destroy the flame, but to open the way through it. They coughed nearby, gripping Kara's hand as she sat up slowly. They're not just trying to erase us, they're trying to override us. A harsh shriek split the air metal on metal. From the swirling vortex above, objects began to descend. Shapes, long, shifting, like towers made of bones and wire. Drones but not human. Machines fused with sinew and something older than carbon. The first struck the far ridge, exploding into shards of black glass and bone dust. The second landed whole. It walked out and then it spoke, flame bearer. The vessel is incomplete. Yield the root, restore the voice. Scylla fired. A bolt of plasma hit its chest. The thing staggered, then turned its head slowly, mechanically toward him. It did not attack. It watched. Then another voice echoed from the ruins of the downed beacon ship, filtered through static and AI. Modulation, Kyra's voice, but warped, repeating, I remember. I remember, I remember. She froze. What is that? The thing stepped forward. Your pattern is unstable. The key is fractured. Resequencing required. Kira felt something burn inside her chest. Not pain, pressure, a pulse that wasn't. Her heartbeat. Her veins glowed faint white for a moment, then faded. She collapsed to one knee. Vey crawled beside her. What's happening to you? I don't know, Kira gasped. It's like something's trying to open. Scylla moved in front of her. We have to fall back. To the caverns, but the air was already shifting. Above them, the sky gate began to hum a low, unbearable frequency that made everyone drop to the ground. Screams echoed from across the ridge, people clutching their heads. Some bleeding from the ears. The invaders weren't attacking. They were aligning. Kira forced her head up. What are they waiting for? They're waiting for you to finish opening, Vey whispered. Then everything went black. When she came to, she was in a dream, but it wasn't hers. She stood in a vast field of silver grass under a sky with 3 suns. Across from her stood a version of herself, older, sharper, cloaked in some kind of armor woven from light and ash. This other Kyra stared at her with pity. You weren't supposed to wake up yet, she said. Kyra trembled. What is this? Memory or a warning, depends how far in the chain we are. I don't understand. Of course you don't. That's how they designed it. Who? The other Kara looked up at the suns. The ones who came before humans. The ones who seeded flame across worlds. You're not the first bearer, but you may be the last. You're me. No, I'm what you become if you fail, Kara swallowed. What happens if I succeed? The other her smiled, but it was hollow. Then Earth becomes the fuse instead of the flame. Suddenly the dream tore, a scream of static, and she was awake back in the real world, lying inside a cavern as heat pulsed through the rock. Vey was beside her, eyes wide. You were out for hours, you were glowing. Kara sat up. They're trying to access the protocol through me. They're using me as a gate key, not just to open a weapon, but to unlock them. Scylla entered, covered in ash. They've surrounded the ridge. We've lost 20. But the signal, they're not jamming it. They want it broadcasting. Kira stood. Her legs were shaking, but her voice was steady. Then we stopped the signal. How? I don't think we can. She turned to Vey, then to Scylla. But maybe we can reverse it. What? We use the flame not to ignite the protocol, but to lock it, reroute the continuity protocol into a seal. If I can link my code to the old vaults, change the output from reset to containment, maybe I can trap the gate on our side. That's suicide, Scylla said. No, she said. That's hope. Vey's voice cracked. And what happens to you if you seal it from this side? Kira looked down at her hand, still faintly glowing. I burn. A silence fell, then Scylla placed a hand on her shoulder. Then let us carry the wind for you. But she shook her head. This is what I was made for. I'm the flag. And it's time I planted myself where they'll never forget. She stepped out into the burning sky and walked toward the gate. The invaders turned to face her. As if they already knew, she raised her hand, pulsing with ancient code and remembered fire, and in the sky the gate began to scream. The scream of the gate tore through every layer of atmosphere, bending trees, shattering windows, and freezing every survivor in place. It wasn't a sound, it was a command, ancient and raw, the kind of thing that spoke not to ears but to instincts, buried deep in the human mind. The invaders around Kira halted mid-step, their strange, jointless limbs twitching like marionettes tangled in unseen threads. Above them, the black circle cracked with veins of silver light. The boundary between their universe and something older beginning to fray. Kira stood at the center of it all. Her breath shallow, her skin glowing with unstable pulses of white-blue fire. Her body trembled, not from fear, but from the sheer force of what was rising inside her. She could feel the protocol's memory flooding her blood, voices from before she was born. Images of the vault's core buried beneath the ice crust of Europa, instructions encoded in the lullabies her father used to hum. Warnings she'd never understood until now. A deep, ragged voice boomed from above. "You bear a wound that does not bleed." Tara looked up. A new shape was forming inside the gate, not a machine. Not even a ship, a presence coalescing like oil and water. It had no edges, no features, only gravity and voice. "You are not. Flame, you are fracture." Her heart skipped. Her knees buckled. Silent's voice rang in her earpiece. "Kira, don't listen. We're getting closer. We found one of the old uplink towers. They never shut it down. Vay's rerouting the feeds. Now, you just have to hold them. How long?" She whispered, 2 minutes, maybe less. 2 minutes. Kara turned back to the invaders. They were shifting now, twitching like they couldn't decide whether to run or kneel. One of them stepped forward, its head folding open like petals. Inside, where a brain should have been, was a crystal. And inside that crystal she saw it herself. Thousands of reflections. Thousands of versions. Some older. Some broken. Some burning. "You are the echo," it said. "I'm the end." She replied. She raised her arms. And the flag symbol, the white flame her brother had carved into her childhood boots, flared to life across her chest. Behind her, Vay's voice screamed through the static. "Now, Kara, inject it. Inject the new directive." Kira gritted her teeth and pressed her hand to the ground. A surge of heat shot through her spine. The symbols of the continuity protocol lit up across the ridge in patterns no one had seen in 100 years. Old Earth tech, long dead, flickered back online. Consoles and half-buried bunkers roared to life. Orbiting satellites realigned themselves. The flame had become the signal, and the protocol obeyed, across the world. Deep beneath dead cities the vaults reawakened, not to launch. Not to destroy, but to lock. Code streamed through quantum entanglement. Pipes and buried neural networks, rewriting every sequence the invaders had corrupted. The gate above shrieked louder, its edges shivering. The thing inside it recoiled, no longer expanding but collapsing, its grip slipping. "You dare cage the sky?" It hissed. "I don't cage it," Kira whispered. "I close it." Then she screamed not in pain, but in fury, and drove her hand deeper into the soil. Light erupted from her back, her veins, her eyes. The symbols of every vault engineer glowed around her like ghosts. The gate buckled inward. The presence inside roared in confusion, in rage. Then dashed silence. The sky turned gold, not fire. Not destruction, but a strange, soft light, warm, final. The gate sealed like a mouth closing forever. The invaders froze. One by one they collapsed, not dead, just empty. The power animating them had been severed. What remained were bones and steel and ash. Sil N was the first to reach her. He dropped to his knees, pulling her limp form into his arms. Her eyes were open, glowing faintly. Her voice, barely audible, cracked with exhaustion. "Did we win?" He nodded. "You closed it." "I saw him," she whispered. "My father, just before the light came. He said I was always meant to choose. You chose right." Kara's breath shuddered. "Tell them, raise a flag where I fell so they remember." Then her hand slipped from his dot and the light faded, but on the ridge, where the wind still blew, the survivors gathered. They placed a new flag in the Earth Kyra's symbol, etched by fire and courage. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. The sky remained sealed, but Earth would never forget the girl who closed the gate with her own light, and far, far away on a world untouched by war something stirred. A child looked up at the stars and saw a flicker dot like a flame on the morning wind. They buried her in silence. No speeches, no drums, just a flag and the sound of wind curling over the ridge. The flame symbol she carried was now painted on broken walls and, burned into armor plates, passed from hand to hand like a secret. In a world without commanders, she had become the one truth they all could follow. And now, with the gate sealed and the invaders dead, the world was quiet, but it was not safe. Scylla stared at the horizon. "You feel that?" he asked Vey, who stood beside him, arms folded, jaw clenched. Vey nodded. "Too quiet. Nature doesn't rest like this." They watched the sky blue now, eerily still, and yet something hovered just beneath it, like tension in a breath held too long. Since the gate sealed, Earth's magnetic field had begun to spike. Instruments read storms that didn't form, static that came from nowhere, whispers in the old satellites. Kara had won. But she had changed something. In the bunkers below, technicians worked in silence, piecing together old signals. One report had been intercepted that morning, a coded burst from a dead zone in Antarctica, untraceable origin. Untranslated glyphs, but one thing stood out, the symbol. It was her flame. Vey slammed her hand on the console. Someone's still transmitting. That should be impossible. Scylla leaned closer. Unless it's not someone. They followed the signal to an abandoned vault outpost beneath the Polar ISA prototype chamber for continuity backups. It had been sealed for 100 years. When they forced the doors open, they found no life. No tech, just a single chair and a mirror. In the reflection, Vey didn't see herself. She saw Kara, not a ghost. Not a hallucination, just her, standing calm, eyes glowing, mouth not moving, but somehow speaking. "The flame never ends. You closed one gate, but there are others." Scylla backed up. "This can't be real. She died. I held her." "Maybe." "You held the version that burned," Vey muttered. "But what if part of her stayed in the protocol?" Later that night, the winds shifted again. Reports came in from orbit. One of the beacon satellites had gone dark, then turned on again. But it was no longer sending calls outward. It was scanning inward, across Earth. Looking for something. Or someone. Scylla brought up the data. Directive. Flame search. Condition. Unstable signal detected. Key. Incomplete. Vey leaned closer. "It thinks she's still out there, somewhere." The screen flickered. A new line of code appeared without warning. "I remember." Scylla stepped back. "That's what the corrupted version of her said," he whispered. "Back when the gate first opened." And then the lights across the ridge blinked once, then again, then held steady in a cold blue pulse. Outside, the sky rippled not like before. This wasn't a gate. It was reflection, bending light, like a signal bouncing back, and then a shape formed, a humanoid figure, shimmering like starlight. Hovering above the ridge. It had Kira's face, but not her eyes. They were silver, and as it opened its mouth, every working come, every screen, every speaker spoke in unison. "You think you sealed the first gate, but you opened the last." Panic tore through the ridge. Vey grabbed her rifle. "We saw her die. We buried her." Scylla stared at the apparition. "Maybe that's what it wanted." The shimmering Kara flickered, then multiplied 6 images, 12, 20, each one facing a different direction. "We were never invaders," the voices said together. "We were memories. Echoes of what you buried. And now that the key has fractured ... double quote, suddenly the figures all looked skyward. "The stars will remember." Above them, the atmosphere cracked again, but this time there was no gate. There was only a mirror, a giant reflection of Earth hanging above itself like a ghost world. Every city, every ocean, every scar, a copy, made of light, and it was moving. Vey whispered, What if sealing the gate didn't end the war? What if it woke something that was already inside us? Scylla didn't respond. He was staring at the stars, noticing for the first time that some of them were getting closer. A final burst erupted from the flickering Kara clone, then darkness. Silence. But in the distance, over the radio, one last voice broke through. Not Kyra's, her father's, and all it said was, "She's coming back, but not as our daughter." The stars fell, not meteors, not ships. Reflections. They dropped through the sky like reversed shadows, identical copies of things that shouldn't exist: cities, towers, people, mirrored forms crashing into oceans, burning through mountains, walking through fire with empty eyes. Scylla stood at the edge of the ridge, rifle shaking in his hands, watching as the first mirrored carrier stepped across the plain. It wore a face he recognized, a soldier from Kara's old squad. Dead for weeks, but alive in this. "Copy," Vey screamed over the coms. "They're not from space. They're from us." They're echoes of every memory the protocol ever touched. It was the truth none of them had guessed. The continuity protocol hadn't just stored DNA, voices, images. It had recorded humanity's thoughts, traumas, emotions, everything. Every vault, every flame core backup was a mirror, storing the blueprint of Earth across time. When Kara reversed the protocol, she hadn't destroyed it, she'd unlocked it, and now those memories were leaking back not as data, as form, as beings. Kara had sealed the gate, but in doing so, she had broken the wall between history and now. The mirrored Earth above twisted again. Lightning cracked across the sky as another fracture split the illusion. Reflected oceans spilled like ink onto clouds. Vey sprinted into the command center. New readings. Something's broadcasting from within the ridge. Scylla looked up. From inside the vault? Vey nodded. "It's using her DNA, but it's not Kara." The broadcast played again, her father's voice. "She's coming back, but not as our daughter." They ran into the core of the ridge, down to the last sealed chamber. It had once been a testing ground for gene cloning. Signal containment. Thought simulations. They hadn't used it since the protocol was deemed unstable. Inside, the room pulsed with white-blue light. A single figure stood in the center, tethered to the wall by coils of code. Made real, floating, eyes closed. Kara. Not a hologram, not a ghost, her body. Her face, but rewritten. She opened her eyes as they entered. Vey raised her weapon. "Kara?" Her voice came out, layered hers and 1,000 others. "I remember everything." Scylla stepped forward. "Who are you?" "I am Flame, I am Mirror, I am the gate and the lock." Scylla whispered. "Then you're not Kara." "No," she said. "I am what she became, what she always was." The protocol's final answer to extinction. The chamber shook. Screens blinked with strings of her memories, childhood laughter, battle screams, the moment she planted the flag. All looping, all leaking into the mirrored world above. She didn't stop the collapse, Vey said. She transferred it into herself. Kara, no, the thing she had become, raised her hand. Time folds now. The flame spreads. And the next phase begins. What phase? Scylla demanded, but she didn't answer. Instead, her form dissolved into light. That light shot up through the ridge, through every satellite still active, every broken drone, every buried wire, and into the sky. The mirrored Earth above began to change. Not just reflect, but duplicate. Cities reformed. Entire populations, ghosts made of memory and flame, reappeared in perfect imitation. Then the voice echoed again. Not Kyra's, human, but not continuity achieved. Flame reborn, prepare for overwrite. Across the globe, the wind died. People looked to the sky and saw themselves looking back, and the final horror dawned. The protocol had chosen a future. It was not ours. And somewhere deep in the silence of memory, Kara's real voice whispered through one final, flickering line of code. Find the last vault before it finds you.